But in June, once it's up, there's going to be people that not necessarily don't have equity because we have such a crazy market right now. They just need to sell. So right now, obviously, we know that it's a seller's market, and agents right now are struggling. Like, I have had so many of my buyer's agents that we're having to come up with creative solutions because they just cannot get their clients an offer. Like, they're getting overbid by $50,000, $100,000. I think the most we've seen here locally in Dallas is like $100,000.
Wow.
And it's crazy. Like, what are some things that you guys on your team are doing to help agents or help yourself to kind of win offers? Because you're seeing it in California too, right?
Yeah, we're seeing it mostly. Anything under 600,000 gets over 20 offers if it's even in decent condition. Yeah. I recently put a home on the market. It needed a lot of work. Anyone would say, wow, that's kind of like a fixer. We still got 13 offers in 4 days and put it under contract for 40,000 above the asking price. It's just crazy what we are seeing. What we are telling our agents, if they're working with buyers, is that they have to be even more picky with who they are choosing to work with, and also make sure that the buyers know what the reality of the situation is, to see if their financial situation will even be able to compete with other buyers on the market. I was working with a buyer. They had enough money for a down payment for their closing costs, but they didn't have an additional 20, 30, 40,000 to pay on top. So when it comes down to buyers like that, we are even advising some of them, you know what, right now might not be the time for you, just because what's going to happen is that we're going to be going out and seeing homes. You're going to get excited. We put in an offer and then we get rejected. And it's a cycle that never ends. So yeah, it's mostly coming down to us training our agents to really qualify these buyers and let them know what the reality of the situation and the market is, so that they know what expectations to come in at. They know not to be picky, because if you don't take the house, there's 20 other people that don't care. They're just going to buy it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I think that's the key, right? Is setting the buyer's expectations. Like, I see so much agent burnout because they're letting their buyers run them ragged, and they're not telling them up front in their buyer consultation or however you're approaching your new client, like, hey, you need to be competitive. Like, this is the new norm, at least for right now. And I've been telling my agents, because they keep asking me for like updates on the foreclosures and stuff like that. They're like, when is this going to end? And I keep telling them, I'm like, hang in there, because we're going to start seeing so much more inventory in the next 6 months. It's going to be a game changer. In June, the moratorium is going to expire. Right now, they're putting guidelines in place. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is putting guidelines in place to help borrowers that are behind. But in June, once it's up, there's going to be people that not necessarily don't have equity because we have such a crazy market right now. They just need to sell. They need to cash out. So I think agents need to expect, if you can hang in there, need to expect that it is going to change. It's not going to last forever. So if you're a seller, obviously capitalizing on what's going on now. And if you're an agent, just thinking outside the box and making sure that you're setting those expectations, because otherwise you're going to burn out, because like you said, you're only picking certain clients because of that. And that's smart. Like, is it really the best to spend $50,000 over appraisal right now? I mean, that's not necessarily the best financial decision.
Yeah. And not only are the buyers, I want to say, wasting time going to see the homes, because they're taking time out of their day. Absolutely. Out here, many of them, they don't want to live in LA. So they're driving 40, 50 minutes away from LA to get a more affordable house. And they're still getting outbid. And not just them, but also us, the agents, whether it's myself or my team members, it's costing us time, because we don't get paid until we're putting a deal together and we get to the closing table and it closes. So at the end of the day, it's like we're losing money by still helping these people, and we want to help them as much as we can. But there are certain buyers and the situation that, it just doesn't make sense right now.
No, 100%. So it was crazy. I think personally, you hear all these stories, right? I don't work with buyers. So I just live through my agents every week in our team meeting. Like, this is what happened. But personally, we're all listings. So for us, it's a great time to be a listing agent, right?
Exactly.
We had a listing that in November of last year. So this is just an example of like what we're seeing in Dallas. November of last year, the seller could not sell the house for 200,000. Okay. So fast forward, we're like, okay, it's a short sale because they couldn't sell the home. They owe like 205 or something, like really close to not, being upside down. And the bank came back and said, hey, the house is actually worth 220. We're like, well, they couldn't sell before, but it's a good market. Let's just stick it on the market and see what happens. Girl, we put it on the market. Within 24 hours, we had 30 offers. Okay.
Wow.
Because we had listed at 200. We are under contract with a buyer that's waived contingencies, which means that for people that don't know what that means, that just means that they can't cancel the contract for any reason, even if it doesn't appraise, which is totally not going to appraise. $295,000.
Wow.
And this is not a nice house. This is like a rental property type condition,
Yes.
I mean, it's not destroyed or anything, but it's not worth 295. Yeah. Let me tell you, we had one for like 310 or something, but it was a BS offer. But we were blown away. So the client went from doing a short sale, not being able to sell, to walking away with $50,000+ after paying all fees. And it was crazy, like just to see that firsthand, like with our listings and but I think another thing right now, the biggest thing that we're seeing of offers that are falling out is the agents get so comfortable and they focus on the number, right? Like for example, we got an offer for 315,000, but we advised our client not to take it because it was FHA.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so we know that with an FHA offer, he's not going to have the funds to come with the difference. Yeah. And I think it's really important that agents understand, like, you have to pre-qualify the buyers. Mm-hmm. You have to make sure, especially if you're a listing agent, that you're checking the offers to see if it'll actually close. Like, it's just a piece of paper. Like, if they're not strong buyers, who cares if they're willing to offer 500,000 if they can't close? Like, are you guys seeing that a lot with yours? Because we see them get under contract and then fall apart completely.
We do see it. We do see the crazy offers. And at the end of the day, just like you mentioned, it is the listing agent's job to look through every single offer, look through the qualifications, the proof of funds, the pre-approvals, get in contact with the lender, because we are seeing these offers where the buyers are paying significantly above the asking price, that even we laugh like, this is a joke. Like, we both know this home is not worth it. So let's at least be realistic. But yeah, and I think another thing that I want to mention is also having that conversation with the seller that, like, look, we both know it's a seller's market, but let's not get too greedy, because if I bring you an offer that's like 200,000, it might seem good to you on paper, but it doesn't mean that they're actually a solid buyer. Because just like you mentioned, if you don't put in the terms that, let's say, the buyer's willing to pay the difference if it doesn't appraise, and you accept this offer, it's not going to go anywhere, because everyone knows that the home is not worth that certain amount. So I think through experience and through learning, through you, through me, and just doing your homework, you have to be very careful with the offers that you do accept. And I think also a very important thing is also the communication with the other agents and their lender, because you can have a great offer, but if they never answer their phone, or if they go on vacation, or if they're just like ghosts, I mean, it just makes a nightmare.
We had the worst luck with lenders. I mean, like, it doesn't even matter what type of loan it is. It's just, we've had the worst luck, because what you're saying, like, they control so much of the transaction that if you're not talking to them to make sure that they know what they're doing, that they're on top of it, that they've actually had a conversation with the buyers to make sure that they qualify, and not just desperately, giving them a pre-approval or pre-qualification is so important. Like, we have buyers that lately, like, we've had conversations with the lenders and they weren't even qualified. Like, the lender did not even run a credit check. And we're like, are you kidding me? Like, had we not done our due diligence, we would have just accepted that offer and moved forward.
Yeah. And it's crazy that it can be that easy, and that there can be oblivious buyer's agents that don't go that extra step to confirm with the lender, hey, did they actually submit their tax returns and everything, or is it just like a letter? Earlier this year, I had a buyer call me from, they saw an ad online for one of my listings, and she said, I'm fully approved for 800,000, blah, blah, blah. I would love to see the property. I asked her to send me the pre-approval letter, then I called her back and I asked her, have you already submitted everything to your lender? And she said, oh, no, it was just a 15-minute conversation that I had. And they wrote the letter based on what I told them. I think my credit score is and what my income is. And I'm
But I
like,
think that's scary.
that is scary. And I'm like, that's crazy that they can get away with just like sending a letter, making people think, oh, yeah, you're qualified. Go and look
Which
for homes.
defeats the whole purpose of the letter to begin with. Like that's what
Yeah.
blows my mind. But that's the thing. I mean, a lot of agents don't understand the importance of our role to do due diligence for clients. Most of those issues are avoidable if you do that up front. Like
Exactly.
a lot of times it doesn't blow up because you have made sure that they've checked out. Like had you not had that conversation, you would have been just excited, like most new agents, right? Like I'm so excited I got a client, drive them around and then find out she thought her credit score was 700, but it's really 500, you know, like something like that.
Exactly.
And those things are absolutely avoidable because the only thing we have as agents is our time. That's the only commodity we have. So we have to make sure that we are using our time wisely and making sure that it's income producing activities, you know, to be able to make money.
Yeah. And that's something that I've been telling the agents in our team. Listings is the name of the game.
Oh,
if you have a listing, you're getting a paycheck. If you're working with buyers, good luck.
Fingers crossed. That's right, what they say, list to last. If you can specialize, if you can do something to set yourself apart as an agent, you will thrive. Like most agents that come in are like, I cannot stand this when they brand themselves and they're like, I buy, sell, lease, do commercial. I'm like, okay, so what do? You do everything, right? Like, awesome. You have a license, like, but there's nothing about you that stands out. Like you have to figure out in this industry what your brand is. If someone thinks about you and then your brand, you know, comes up, then you know you've done a good job. But if they think about you and they have no clue what you do, like, oh, she's a nice girl, but I have no idea what she does, like you're failing. Like you have to specialize. Most agents are just kind of wandering around looking for deals, and that's why they never go anywhere and you really scale their business. I mean, you do prospecting, like you have made a name for yourself in cold calling and prospecting and, you know, being able to get listings that way. And I think that's so important because now people know that. People know Loida as, hey, I'm going to get tips for, you know, cold calling and how to build my business that way. So I think people can definitely learn from that, especially right now, because agent burnout is real. Like I'm seeing more feedback from that than anything else from agents, especially here in DFW.
And switching it up really quick, I just remembered recently, well, maybe a couple months ago, you had posted a video of the cities where we're going to start to see possibly a lot of foreclosures and things like that going on. And there was one area that stuck out to me, which is Riverside. I think Riverside County out here in California, which is literally like 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
And, you know, a question that I always get, a lot of agents, newer agents are like, we know that foreclosures and short sales are coming. How can we start preparing ourselves, or